When I was 10 years old, my friends and I would gather every evening to play hide and seek with flashlights. Do you know what that game is? It's almost like regular hide and seek, except that you play in complete darkness. One person is it, and the rest hide. The person who is it wanders the streets with a flashlight and looks for the others. If you saw someone, you just had to say their name, and that was it. You were caught. One of those evenings was particularly gloomy. The sky was overcast, and almost all the windows were dark with the curtains drawn. It was the perfect night for a game like this. Behind our houses was a long strip of forest, which was considered the boundary of the game. The rule was simple: no stepping into the forest. There, you could get lost, fall into a hole, or simply hide so well that no one would find you until morning. Of course, not everyone followed the rule, especially when you were almost found, and all you had to do was run away into the darkness behind a tree or bush. Some of us used this to our advantage. We hid in the woods and then jumped out, scaring the others to squeal. That evening, I hid in my neighbor's yard. They had a swing, and I crouched down next to it, trying to blend in with the shadows. The beam of a flashlight swept nearby, and I froze every time it got closer. Suddenly, someone came out from around the corner of the house. He immediately pointed the bright light at me. I jumped back and ran toward the woods. I stopped by the bushes. If they recognized me, they would call out to me. The beam was still searching the yard, then slowly turned toward me. For a moment, I thought the owners of the house had spotted me. Although most adults were cool with our game, some didn't like kids wandering around their property. I crouched down in the grass and froze, trying to see who it was. The light hit me right in the face, and I raised my hands to shield my eyes. It was a strange feeling. He just stood there, shining the light. Not a word. Not a call. Nothing. "You got me!" I shouted, hoping that if it was an adult, they would understand that it was just a game. But at that moment, I heard screams from the other side of the street. Someone was chasing the others with a flashlight. So the leader was there. I stood up, trying to make out the face of the person standing in front of me. But he didn't move, just kept shining the light straight into my eyes. Fear washed over me, cold and clammy. "I'm sorry I came into your yard," I muttered. The man moved toward me, and then I realized something was wrong with him. I started to back away. He kept shining the light in my face and slowly approached me. I started to run. Looking back, I saw that he was running too. He was an adult, tall and fast. Panic gripped my chest. I didn't know who he was or what he wanted from me. I wanted to run back to the others, to the children, but the screams had already died down. I was alone. Without thinking, I turned into the forest. I fell into the grass and crawled under some bushes, curling up in a ball. My heart was beating so loudly that it seemed as if it could be heard on the other side of the grove. I heard the stranger shining a flashlight, heard the crunch of branches under his feet. Who was he? Why was he chasing me? Soon the footsteps faded and the light dimmed. Quiet as a mouse, I crawled out of my hiding place. Once out on the street, I rushed to the nearest houses and was immediately caught by the leader. He shouted joyfully, "You're it! Now you're it!" I tried to explain that there was a stranger with a flashlight walking nearby. But he just laughed and repeated, "You're it! You're it!" "Don't go into the forest," I shouted. But no one took me seriously. Everyone thought I was just putting on a show so they wouldn't cheat. Now I had the flashlight, and I decided I could use it to find the person who had scared me, to make sure he was gone, to stop being afraid. I returned to where it all began. I heard the cheerful voices of children in the neighboring yards, but I didn't pay any attention to them. I got closer to the woods. There was no light inside. So he was gone? I wanted to believe it. I joined the game again. I ran to catch the others, but found no one. Everything was empty, as if everyone had suddenly disappeared. I went into the Smith's yard. There was always a lot of laundry hanging there, and their daughter Anna, a girl a year younger than me, often hid under the sheets, closer to the house. Suddenly, I heard a noise coming from the woods. I turned around quickly and shone my flashlight in that direction. "Don't go into the woods," I repeated, my voice trembling slightly. The beam of the flashlight slid across the tree trunks. I moved it back and forth, and suddenly came across a figure in the distance. I froze. It could have been Charlotte. The same length of hair, the same dark purple shirt she often wore. "Anne, I see you!" I shouted, shining the light directly into her face. She continued to stand motionless. I shone the light directly into her face and called her name again. No response. She was partially hidden behind a tree, and all I could see was her head peeking out from behind the trunk at an unnatural angle. Her mouth was open, too wide. Sometimes she twitched, as if in a seizure. It looked scary. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Anne, come out already," I shouted. "Hey guys, she's out there in the woods, but she won't come out." Dustin appeared behind me with a couple of other guys. Everyone started shouting, "Anne! Hey, Anne!" "Can you see her?" I asked Max, keeping my eyes on the tree. "Yes. She's standing behind that trunk." Max squinted. "Anne, what are you doing? Come here, you idiot. Are you okay?" She suddenly straightened up and instantly disappeared behind the tree. We heard someone breaking through the bushes, but the footsteps were moving away from us. She was running away. "Damn, she's getting away!" Max cursed and took off. I handed him my flashlight. He couldn't go any further without it. And then it hit me. Everything that was happening seemed surreal, as if I were in a bad dream. A chill ran through me. This wasn't a game anymore. I turned and ran to the Smith's house. I knocked loudly and desperately on the door. A few moments later, her father came out onto the porch. "Mr. Smith, Anne is in the woods, but she's acting strange. Very strange. I think something's happened to her." He looked at me silently. Then he rolled up the newspaper, disappeared into the house, and returned with a large, powerful flashlight. "Show me." I led him back to the woods. We approached the tree where I had last seen her. Here. She was behind that tree. But she wasn't responding, and she looked, well, like she was sick. Or like she wasn't herself. Behind us, we could hear children screaming. In the distance, we could see the beam of a flashlight. Max was looking for something. Mr. Smith headed straight into the woods without hesitation. After about 20 minutes, it became clear that he was angry. We could hear his voice getting louder and louder. He wasn't calling anymore. He was ordering. He was threatening punishment. There was no more talk of a game. Max was the first to emerge from the woods. His flashlight wasn't working. The batteries had died. His face was pale, his eyes lost. A minute later, Mr. Smith appeared. He looked at us with an expression that seemed to say he suddenly realized that this was no longer just a scare, but a real disaster. "The game is over. Everyone go home. Tell your parents to come out with flashlights. We're starting a real search." The children scattered to their homes. My father immediately brought out 3 lanterns. My mother turned on all the lights in the backyard and drew the curtains. I sat on the sofa, unable to speak or move. Everything inside me was contracting. My mother sat down next to me and tried to calm me down. I told her everything. I told her what Anne looked like, how she was twitching, and most importantly, about the stranger with the flashlight I had seen that evening. Mr. Smith called the police. When the officers arrived, they began combing the woods with dogs, methodically, step by step, checking every bush. But they didn't find her. Mom told Dad what I had seen. Dad passed it on to the police. I gave a statement. The officers went to the house where I had seen the stranger with the lantern. Everyone was asleep. No one had heard anything. The police began questioning everyone in the area. People shrugged their shoulders. No one had seen anything suspicious. No clues, no answers. 2 days later, at the other end of the forest, near a dirt road that led to the logging site, they found Anne. Her body had been shoved into a drainage pipe under an embankment by the stream. My parents didn't tell me anything. They thought it would traumatize me. But the next day, Max told me everything. He said her neck was broken, and she had multiple stab wounds. No one else wanted to talk about it. Our village seemed to freeze. The dirt road was blocked off. For several months, every driver of a logging truck and long-haul truck was checked. A curfew was imposed. We were forbidden to play hide and seek. No one objected, but I still shake when I remember that face. The way it peered out from behind the tree, with its dead eyes and wide-open mouth. I'm sure Charlotte was already dead then, and someone was holding her body, making it move, twitch, look at me, to lure me into the forest. In my practice, there have been many successful operations to find missing people. Most often, such cases turned out to be quite ordinary. Someone strayed from the path, someone slipped off a small cliff and could not find their way back. Many people follow the well-known rule of staying put and waiting for help, so we usually find them not far from where they disappeared. But there have been some stories that stand out from the rest. There are only 2, but they still haunt me. I think about them in those moments when I feel like giving up. The first case involved a little boy who came to the forest with his family to pick berries. He was with his sister, and they disappeared together. Their parents were distracted for just a second, and the children vanished into thin air. When it became clear that they couldn't be found on their own, we were called. The girl was found fairly quickly, but when we asked her about her brother, she told a strange story. According to her, he had been taken away by a bear man. This bear man gave her some berries and told her to keep quiet because he wanted to play with her brother. The last time she saw her brother, he was sitting calmly on the creature's shoulders. Of course, our first thought was kidnapping, but when we searched the area, we found no signs of another person. The girl insisted that he was unusual, tall, covered in thick fur like a real bear, and with a ridiculous face. We combed the entire area and worked for a whole week, but found nothing. In the second case, a girl who was relaxing in nature with her mother and grandmother went missing. According to her mother, her daughter climbed a tree to look around, but never came down. They waited for her under the tree for several hours, calling her name and searching nearby, and then called for help. We searched the entire area but found no trace of her. What is striking is that neither the mother nor the grandmother saw the girl leave the tree. It was as if she had simply vanished. Sometimes, when dogs are involved in the search, they lead us to sheer cliffs. Not mountains or large boulders, but completely vertical cliffs without the slightest ledge. It's always puzzling. And the strangest thing is that we then find the missing person, either on the other side of the cliff or several kilometers from where they were last seen. I am sure there is a logical explanation for these cases, but it would be very unusual. We had a case where the search ended tragically. A 9-year-old girl fell from a high embankment and impaled herself on a dry tree. The incident itself was terrible, but it was not the incident itself that stuck in my mind, but her mother's reaction. When she realized that the body bag contained her daughter, she screamed. It wasn't just a scream. It was the cry of a soul being torn apart. It seemed as if she had lost everything in that moment. A couple of weeks later, I learned from another rescuer that the woman had taken her own life. She couldn't go on living without her daughter. One day, my partner and I went out to search for a missing tourist. There had been bear sightings in the area, so there were 2 of us. The man didn't return after climbing to the summit, so we had to go up there too. We found him trapped in a crevice with a broken leg and signs of infection. He had been there for almost 2 days. When he was evacuated by helicopter, one of the medics told me something strange. The entire time he was being taken to the hospital, he kept repeating the same thing. When he reached the summit, someone was already there. A man without climbing gear, wearing ski pants and a parka. He approached to talk, but the man had no face, just a smooth surface. The man panicked and rushed down, falling to his death. According to him, during the night he heard the faceless man continue to descend, emitting muffled, heart-rending cries. I heard this story later, and honestly, I'm glad I didn't hear it from the victim himself. It made me shiver. One of the most terrifying events for me was a rescue operation to find a girl who had become separated from her tourist group. We worked until dark because the dogs had picked up her scent. The girl was found under a rotten log. She was lying curled up in a ball, without shoes or a backpack. She had no visible injuries and could walk on her own, but she was in a state of deep shock. On the way back to base, she kept looking back and asking if we could see a big man with black eyes following us. We didn't see anyone and decided it was a stress-induced hallucination. But the closer we got to the base, the more anxious she became. At one point, she begged us to make him stop making faces. Then she stopped, turned around, and started screaming into the forest, begging to be left alone. She said she wouldn't go with him and wouldn't give us up. With difficulty, we persuaded her to keep going. Then strange sounds began in the forest, as if someone was coughing, but rhythmically, and not like a human. It sounded like the buzzing of a large insect, but with a frightening depth. When we were almost at the base, the girl looked straight at me. Her eyes were so wide open that they seemed larger than possible. She touched my shoulder and said, "He asked me to tell you to hurry up. He doesn't like the scratch on your neck." There really was a scratch, tiny, under my collar. I don't understand how she could have noticed it. And at that very moment, I heard that same cough right next to me. I struggled to maintain my composure, quickened my pace, and didn't look back. And perhaps the most inexplicable thing is what we never talk about officially. I don't know if this happens at other PSS stations, but it happens regularly here. If you ask other officers, most will pretend they don't know what you're talking about. And even if they do understand, they won't say anything. We've been asked not to bring this up with our superiors, but among ourselves, we've gotten used to it. When we go deep into the forest, about 50 to 60 kilometers from the base, we come across ladders. They are ordinary ladders, as if they had been torn out of houses and placed right among the trees. The first time I didn't understand what was going on, but my partner just waved his hand and said, "Don't pay any attention, it's normal." Everyone I asked said the same thing. I tried to examine one of these ladders, but I was clearly told not to. Now, when I see them, I just keep walking. They appear frequently, and I'm no longer sure I want to know why they're there.